Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and there's been a lot of talk about the uninteractivity of Hearthstone, a lot of problems with that. We talked about it a bit during like our aggro rogue discussion, and to a lesser extent during the priest discussion with a lot of uninteractivity, and I had a lot of people in comments asking me like, why are you against combo decks? Are combo decks bad for the game? And because I mentioned that, like with the aggro rogue deck, that it's very uninteractive. It just goes face, and it feels like a combo deck. And should that not exist? And of course, I firmly believe combo decks should exist. But today's video is kind of going to explore why the current combo decks of the game, the one-turn kill decks of the game, are just not really healthy in my opinion. And I'll do a lot of like comparative stuff to like older OTK decks. So let's kind of go through it, and I'll give my reasoning as to why I think the current combo decks are problematic, but I do think combo decks in general should exist. So let's go through like a mini history of combo decks, like the most prolific ones. So you look back at like old school Freeze Mage, right? That deck was quite frustrating for a lot of people. It revolved around board freezes. You had Ice Block, which is one of the most hated cards in Hearthstone history. And it revolved around typically Alexstraszaing your opponent and then burning them down with other like Frostbolt, Fireballs, Ice Lances, the like of those type of cards. And it was a long-term strategy. Like your Alexstrasza would typically cost 9 mana, or maybe it would cost 8 mana with an Emperor Thorson. But overall, it was, you know, a long-term stall combo deck. And yes, they're frustrating to face. They freeze your board. They do all this stuff. They stall with Ice Block. And I mean, Ice Block was eventually Hall of Fame for that reason. They understood that this type of thing was frustrating, but overall, you know, you had to get to like turns 9, 10, 11 to pull your combo. And to get there, you had to play cards like Arcane Intellect, 3 mana draw 2, or Cold Light Oracle, or Acolyte of Pain, and really work to draw for your deck, right? Like, it took a while. It was a long process to draw your deck. We've had the other combo decks like Grid Patron Warrior that it was a bit more explosive because you had like War Song Commander, which you could play for 3 mana and then like a Frothing for another 3, and typically you could set up like a one-turn kill like turn 7 and 8. And again, this deck was recognized as problematic pretty quickly and was nerfed within like a month or two of its release. And you know, that type of interactivity wasn't really well received. But we've had other combo decks like, I don't know how many iterations of Malagos Druid, and pretty much none of them have directly been nerfed. We've seen like nerfs to like Wild Growth and Nourish to slow Druid down, but not particularly Malagos Druid. And we've seen like Cloning Gallery combo decks. We talked about that with Priest yesterday. We've seen a ton of different OTK decks, and for the most part, they're fine. They're fine because they take a while to build, they take a while to establish, you know, and they help keep certain things in line. Like you have aggro, right? It helps, you know, punish greed, and you have control, which, well, not these days you do, but typically you have control that keeps like, you know, aggro in line. But now that aggro never runs out of resources, control can't keep up. But then you have like combo, which can, you know, counter control. You have that triangular, like, you know, balance approach. And I love combo decks, particularly not the current iterations, but I've loved combo decks. My favorite deck of all time is Malagos Druid, because it was always like a test of how do I balance my resources, get to my end game combo, which typically I would have to draw my entire deck through typically tough manipulation, whether it be like a Nourish, a Paths, a UI. Like I had to get there, I had to earn my way there. It wasn't just until like a card like Juicy Psych Melon was made where you draw your combo, where I just didn't like Malagos Druid anymore because I just got a 4 mana draw my combo card. I didn't really like that. So it gets to my point here is that the combo decks of today are like you either like in Wild, you play Polkelt and get Raza Anduin, you get your combo by playing a card, or you play Malagos Druid and you play Melon and draw your combo, or you play Hemet and then you just immediately Mechathune. Like I find those to be kind of boring. I find those to be kind of not the most satisfying combo decks, and that's personal preference, and I've never really called for those cards to be nerfed for the most part. But the problem with the current standard OTK decks is that they can go off on like turns 5, 6, and 7. That's the big problem. That's what I'm getting at. You look at all these older combo decks, and even the ones in Wild for the most part, they have to get to turns 8, 9, 10 typically to kill you. Unless you're playing Druid and you hit that perfect ramp into Melon, into Geppetto, and Aviana, do all the broken stuff on turns 5, 6, 7, which can happen. But that's Wild, and that's a high roll. But in Standard right now, the two really prevalent OTK decks are Mazaki Mage and Il'gynoth Demon Hunter, and both realistically and not that pretty consistently go off on turn 6 and 7. You get the right skull, you basically hit one combo piece with Skull of Gul'dan, you can kill your opponent from 30, no problem. You hit Moarg Artificer or Il'gynoth, you basically can kill your opponent on 6 and 7 mana with almost no setup, just 1 mana discount off your skull for the most part. Mazaki Mage, because of Biscuit, you can realistically, if you have Sorcerer's Apprentice Mazaki on turn 6, go off and kill your opponent. Turn 6. We've even seen it on turn 5. There was Captain Kidding, a recent tournament. Lily got killed, 1 turn killed on turn 5 by Mazaki Mage. And that's my problem with the decks in the current iteration of them, is they just go off way too soon, and it feels absolutely terrible. This is all enabled because of the this thumbnail, this video. The biggest problem in Hearthstone today is the ridiculous cheap draw. In terms of Mage, you have Cram Session that enables all this. You play Apprentice Mazaki, you play a 1 mana Cram Session and draw 8 cards, and then you kill your opponent because your Frostbolt costs 1 or 0 if you played an Incanter's Flow. It costs nothing. With Demon Hunter, with Illidari's Studies now, you can cheat out your Skull of Gul'dan for 4 or 5 mana, and then that cheats more mana, and then you kill your opponent on turns 5 and 6 and 7. And I'm firmly okay with combo decks. I really am. I do think there needs to be counterplay, and with the introduction of Vol'jin into the game already, we're seeing signs that counterplay is coming. And likely, maybe later today when the core set's announced, we'll see Dirty Rat or something as well added. But regardless of counterplay, it's still with Elucia, what are you going to do against a turn 6 Mazaki OTK Mage deck? You're Elucia on 3, you can't even play their Mazaki. When it goes off that early, it just feels terrible. It's really unhealthy, and that's where I think a lot of the frustration comes in. I don't think people are get rid of OTK decks. They're terrible. They shouldn't be in the game. There's some versions in Standard right now that I think are relatively healthy, right? You have ETC Warrior. You only have to get to 10 mana for the most part to play it. You have to cycle through your deck through Battle Rage and Cutting Class, and you also have to have your opponent play minions for the most part. There's a lot of things that go into it, and it takes a while. You don't feel like you're gonna immediately die at any point after turn 6, right? You're kind of aware of what's going on. You're aware of what clock you're on. And same with Silas OTK with the Ash Tongue, whatever, Shield Slam combo. You can try and get their armor down, and again, that's a 9 mana combo or a 10 mana combo. Again, you have time to prepare for that. Hell, you could Tekken Plate Breaker or whatever. Regardless, there's combo decks in the game that I think are healthy and can keep things in line, and I think combo is fine. It's just when you get to this point where the combo can realistically and consistently come out on turn 6 and 7, it's a bit of an issue. So I hope that they dial it back. They address maybe these two decks in particularly, Mazaki Mage and OTK DH, because there's a good chance maybe Apprentice will rotate. It won't be a part of the core set. Well, again, we'll find that out later today, and then this will be a pretty moot point, but I do think that's the big frustration that people have with the current combo decks. Not that they're combo decks, that they come out too early. So let me know in the comments below how you feel about combo decks in general about Hearthstone. Do you think there should never be a deck that can kill you from in hand, like an old Freeze Mage or Malagos Druid or whatever, Shirvala Paladin, anything like that? Or are you, you're frustrated with these combo decks that go off too early? Or are you fine with all of it? Because that's your opinion, you can be entitled to it, and I'm just putting mine out there. So let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day, and stay salty, my friends.